see. I'm going to try this in Portuguese. It's my first time in Brazil, so please be kind to me. Olá, meu nome é Peter Kim, CEO da Mighty Hive, e estou muito honrado com a oportunidade de falar com vocês hoje. A couple of days ago when I was in my hotel room, I was trying to stay in shape and was doing box jumps in my hotel room, and I managed to actually pull a muscle in my right leg. So that's why I'm sitting. Normally I'd be pacing all over the stage and be very alert and very active and stuff like that. Today I'm just going to sit here and because of this leg, so please accept my apologies for that as well. So today we're going to be talking about the spectrum of control, and it's really a general purpose, sort of broad-ranging talk about what's going on in the industry, and specifically around topics like in-housing and transparency, and a lot of the topics and issues that Mighty Hive has been on the forefront of for the last really kind of 5 years. So first, just a little bit about me. I'm the CEO of a company called Mighty Hive. We started it in San Francisco about 7.5 years ago. We've got offices all around the world: San Francisco, New York, Tokyo, Toronto, London, Sydney, Singapore, etc. More on the way. And we just have joined forces with Prague Media, now known as Mighty Hive Brazil, here in Sao Paulo. So very, very interesting work. And we are, have been, as I mentioned, on the forefronts of a lot of the changes that are happening, not on the tech side of the house, but on the services side of the house. And it's actually very interesting. My own personal background is not from agencies, which is a little bit surprising. Actually, even to this day, I don't really like it when Mighty Hive is called an agency. We actually don't consider ourselves one. We consider ourselves more of a consultancy. And so there is lots of history there. But prior to starting Mighty Hive, I did a lot of things. I was an engineer at one point in time during the first .com bubble, and then did some consulting work, went back and got an MBA in finance at Wharton, did 2 years in private equity, figured out that I wanted to build companies, not buy and sell them, and then ended up back in California, where I joined the advertising industry, did some work at Yahoo, where I was a product manager for the initial rollout of dynamic creative. For those of you who have been irritated by the endless succession of retargeting ads, I humbly apologize for that. And after 3 years at Yahoo, I spent 2 years at Google, where I ran a team on sales and then oversaw business developments and oversaw big chunks of the data strategy for Google's programmatic platform. But 7 years ago, we started Mighty Hive, and things have been going pretty well. But one of the things that has been just constant throughout that time, and really is reaching a crescendo now, is just the chaos that we see in the industry. You got some of these headlines, which are just unbelievable if you think about it. Marketers, we don't understand our tech stack. ANA's K2 report, evidence of pervasive agency rebate collection. Federal prosecutors probe the ad industry's media buying practices. And this is just kind of what's happening on the services side. On the publishing side and on the Adtech side, there's equal amounts of chaos. And so I think it's safe to say that right now we live in a very unsettled time, and there's a lot of things changing. But like with many of those situations, change is also opportunity. So I think that if you really wanted to unpack what's going on, the fundamental shift that's happened is a fundamental shift in media. And what I often will say is that any discussion of advertising or marketing that doesn't begin and end with a real sort of concentration on the consumer themselves is inherently flawed. After all, everything that we do in advertising and in marketing is about the consumer. And so what has happened, to the consumer, I think, is probably where I'd like to start. And there has been, over the last 5 or 10 years, a fundamental shift in media. It is cross-screen, it is on demand, it's personalized, and it's everywhere. If you think about it, the following is actually just an amazing statement. For the first time in history, every person in this room can watch anything they want, read anything they want, listen to anything they want at the touch of a button across every single connected device. You do it every day, I do it every day, and it has become the new normal. But it is an unbelievable technical achievement that this is even possible. And like with so many things, that change has really shifted our perceptions of what is normal. And so we now expect more quality, more relevance, more personalization from every moment that we spend with any of our screens. And that expectation for personalization, for relevance, for meaning, applies to the other stuff that comes through these screens. Not the media, but the advertisements. And it's really hard for us as the advertising industry to keep up with those expectations. Because unlike the media, the consumers themselves won't curate the ads. They won't pick which ones are perfect for them. They leave it to us as the advertisers to figure out and guess which is the right one. And that's obviously a lot harder. And the long and the short of what has happened is that we now know that today people don't like ads that much, right? It's always bugged me that I work in an industry where if you take a look at the consumer sentiment, if you take a survey of 10,000 people, a lot of them are going to say, I don't like ads. And you don't need a survey to tell you that. Oftentimes you'll see people with ad blockers, or with the fact that we've trained them as an industry to be blind to banners, and so that they ignore the thing that's right here and the thing that's right here just by instinct. And so all of that is crazy. But if you think about it logically, why did this happen? Once you get past the initial sort of, ooh, that's not good, something had to change in order for those sentiments to be like that. And logically speaking, either we as an industry had to get worse at advertising, or the bar, the expectations that people have around advertising had to go up. And I claim that this fundamental shift in media is what caused that change. People expect more from every single moment of screen time, which means they expect more of the advertisements, and we haven't kept up with that overall expectation shift. So, against that backdrop, we see giants in the industry. This is a picture of Mark Pritchard, who's the Chief Brand Officer of Procter & Gamble, now the number 2 largest budget in the world. And he said, we had too many people between us and the consumer, and taking too long to get things done. We have to move a lot faster. As we all chase the holy grail of digital, we relinquish too much control, chasing shiny objects, overwhelmed by big data, and ceding power to algorithms. We are going to take more control of our media planning, data, and analytics. One thing that's interesting about this is that the insight is here. Control is about who is doing the work, not about what type of work is being done or what tools you're using. Control is about the services, the people, whose hands are on the keyboard, making the decisions, designing the creative, optimizing the campaigns every single day in order to achieve your business objectives. Now, if you're going to take control in this day and age, and by the way, I believe that every single company that's represented in this room today must take control. There's lots of different types of control, and we'll talk about that in a second, but 5,000 of the Fortune 5,000 has to do something, because 5,000 of the Fortune 5,000 talk to customers, and every single one of those customers has had their perceptions and their expectations shifted. If you take control, you get the following benefits: improved performance. We absolutely believe that the agility and the unfettered access to data will improve the performance. We've got the case studies, multiple of them to prove it. Transparency and cost savings. I'm not going to beat a dead horse here, but our industry has been racked by the scandals around transparency or lack thereof by some of the partners that we wish to trust the most. Finally, speed and agility. In a world that seems like it's always getting faster and faster and faster, you must also create an organization that is equally as nimble, equally as fast. That being said, it is not easy to do this. There are barriers to control, and here are a few of them. First and foremost, let's be clear, there is massive confusion out there. Our industry seems to be drunk on TLAs, three-letter acronyms. And sometimes it becomes a crazy sort of dictionary exercise trying to pretend like you know what the hell somebody just said. There is massive confusion out there. I'm here to tell you, honestly, like I've designed a lot of these platforms. I've worked with all of them. Always, always insist upon knowing exactly what somebody said. It's confusing even to me sometimes, but under the hood, you can ask simple questions and get simple answers. It's not that complicated. Oftentimes it's dressed up in a confusing array of acronyms. But if you can't find somebody who can explain it to you clearly, then they don't know what they're talking about. Next, a lack of ability to execute. Out there, because of this confusion, because of this stuff is so new, there are partners, the partners in organizations that you look to in order to kind of do these things, to put their hands on the keyboards every day and create the campaigns and optimize the campaigns and the creative. The partners in the organizations lack the knowledge, the skill, and sometimes the integrity to do this right. I think as an industry, we spend so much time thinking about the tech that we forget that a critical component, a critical part of the recipe for success is not just the tech, it's the people who use it. And you have to pay just as much attention to that as well. Finally, and let's be clear about this, resistance to change. If you're going to be going out into your company and saying, hey, you know what? There's this big shift going out in the marketplace. We're going to have to figure out a way to change the way we do business, to change the very way that we think about consumer interaction. There's going to be resistance inside of your own organizations. There are always going to be people that want things to just stay the same and will be very frustrated or afraid or all of the above, and will try to fight you in terms of your ability and your agenda to make these changes. That being said, we have to do this. I am more convinced than ever that the organizations that take control will be the winners of the next round of business evolution. If you take a look at history, the businesses that have typically ascended or descended, usually these changes happen during times of massive change inside of technology, and we're right in the middle of one right now. And I guarantee you that this is right now the time where companies have to rethink everything. And some of them will do it and some of them won't. And I believe that the organizations that do this will be the leaders of tomorrow, and the folks that, for whatever reason, political, technical, whatever, that fail to do this will have a really tough time. Now, after I've talked a lot about control, I just want to say the following. Taking control is not a binary decision. It's not a choice between going this way or that way, left or right. It's not you're in control or you're not in control. There is a ton of different options around this. And we call this total sum of options the spectrum of control. These are all the different ways that you can do something that's different from today. Total in-housing is one of those options, but only one of many, many, many. So, just for simplicity, again, a full-on discussion of the spectrum of control is beyond the scope of a 30-minute presentation in English or in Portuguese. But here is just a sample. Here's 4 potential viable options. And I emphasize the word viable. All of these might work depending upon your situation. Number 1, outsourced and non-transparent. Most companies are here today still. 2, outsourced and transparent. You working with transparent partners who tell you exactly what margin they're taking, exactly how things are working, no black boxes, no mystery. If you want an answer to your question, they know the answer and they're willing to give it to you. 3, an embedded solution. This is maybe abandoning the old agency model and having the folks that are actually going to be doing the work, the hands-on keyboard campaign optimization and so on, not working from their offices, but instead working from your offices to enhance communication, to enhance and accelerate decision-making speed, etc. Try it sometime. The next time that you are emailing somebody in the hopes of getting a conference call or a video conference or a video chat arranged and scheduled sometime in the next week when you need an answer right now, just imagine the ability to just tap somebody on the shoulder and have the conversation immediately. Finally, fully in-house, which is everything that we just talked about, but it's not somebody else's employees that are working in your offices, it's your own. Now, I once again emphasize that all 4 of these are viable models, depending upon what your company is like, what is your strategic sort of realities. Any of these might work. And we'll talk about a little bit more of that now. So, as you might guess, there is a lot of different things that can be outsourced or in-housed or whatever, right? And so audience, creative, media, measurement, your tech contracts, right? Now we're starting to see the chessboard, right? Each of these discreetly can have a separate decision whether to be in-house or out. Oftentimes we hear the word, oh, we're in-housing something. That's great. What exactly are you in-housing? Did you in-house the creative? Did you in-house the creative and the media? How about the measurement? What about audience planning? What about strategy? What about the tech contracts? It is incomplete to say that we've in-housed something. You must be more specific about what you've in-housed and, more importantly, why. Here's an example. This is maximum control. Everything is in-house. This is the hardest to execute. It is also the one with the greatest potential for performance. Here's the easiest to execute. Most people are here today, right? Fully outsourced. It's easiest to execute because you don't have to change anything, right? Performance will be limited because your profit comes second, right? If you've got somebody else doing this work, they're going to make sure they get paid before your performance comes through. It's just the way it is. Hybrids of this are common. You can have parts that are in-house, other parts that are, outsourced or remaining somewhere in the middle of this. And all the different sort of permutations, all the different combinations that are possible on this chessboard that we've laid out, all of those together represent the sum total of the spectrum of control that we're talking about. Mighty Hive's job, and really S4's job, which is now the firm that I now work for, we believe our job is to help every single company in the world figure out where on this spectrum your company should be. And then rather than leaving you with a really unsatisfying PowerPoint deck like some of our consulting brethren, we'll actually, once we've gotten to the right answer, then we'll roll up our sleeves and actually help you get there. And we won't leave until we're done. So, the natural question on this is, you've set up this chessboard, you've figured out maybe that there's some change needed. Where do I belong? Where does my organization belong? Obviously, that's a very, very complicated conversation, but here's just a few things to get you started. 5 factors that you can consider. Number 1, what's your media budget? I'm going to tell you this right now. It's not rocket science, to be honest. If you spend $0 in media, you don't need an in-house media function. On the other hand, if you spend several $billion a year in media, maybe do the math on how much you're paying in fees on that media, and then calculate how many in-house employees you could hire with that. The numbers are staggering. Second, security and the sensitivity of the data. Now, Mighty Hive was founded as a first-party data firm. We believe that third-party data is useful, but ultimately insufficient. Because fundamentally, if you are trying to differentiate your product, your strategy, your go-to-market from some competitors, you simply cannot find long-term, strategic, sustainable advantage using the same data that everybody else has. Over the long run, first-party data is the only data that you will have that your competition will not. And so therefore, it is incumbent upon you to use it. By the way, when I was talking jokingly about retargeting ads, one of the reasons why retargeting has been so amazing in terms of its performance is that it is first-party data. The pixel fires that are coming off of your websites is your data, not anybody else's. And that's why your competition can't use it. There's lots of different types of first-party data. And the pixel fires from your website are literally the tip of the iceberg. If you're going to use more of it, then inevitably you're going to come into a conversation with your security department. The twin mandates around data today are the following. One, you must use it in order to make your business better. You must also protect it. Because in this world of security hack after security hack, you know what happens to people who lose control of their data because a hacker got in and posted it to the dark web? CEOs get fired. So imagine a conversation where you say, hey, you know what, Mr. CEO, Mr. Chief Security Officer, I would like to improve our advertising results by sending our first-party data to our agency so that they can use it in order to do great stuff. What data do you want to send? The CEO may ask, and you just say, oh, not much. Just the name, address, phone number, social security number, and email of every single customer that we've ever done business with, what they bought, how much they paid for it, and what we think they're going to buy next. Mic drop, end of conversation. Forget it. The data is not going to move. By the way, if you were a burglar, a hacker, and you had a choice between trying to go pillage one data set or 20 at the same time, which one would you pick? The security ramifications of data protection simply are not ever going to allow full and unfettered access to that data by an outside partner, full stop. If you want to use the data, if you need to use the data, then it must be used in the confines of a protected environment where it already exists inside of your four walls. Now, you'll notice that this says sensitivity of data, not just data. Here's what I mean by that. All data is sensitive, but some data is more sensitive than others. If you work in an industry that has laws written specifically about your data, healthcare, financial services, Europe, the interesting thing is that we need to protect this data, and the necessity to try and build a team wherever the data now lives is even higher. The next two things I'm just going to put up. This is diversity of target audience and diversity of product portfolio. Really, this talks about the complexity of your marketing. If you work in a sleepy industry where you have one product that's bought by everybody, no competition, and everybody is basically the same with one single message, you may not need to have the agility and the speed and the data stuff that I'm talking about. Very, very few industries are like this. But the more cutthroat and competitive your industry, the faster you need to react, the more products you have, and the more like different types of audiences that may want to see this, you're going to need to do a lot of experiments. You're going to need to do a lot of activity. And the more that there is, the more that you're going to benefit from the speed and agility and data protection that comes from being, having more control. And then the final point I think I've already made, right? If you need to be fast, then there's no question that certain models are faster than others. So here's a couple of key insights for you. I've got 5 minutes left, and then I'm going to wrap. You don't have to do this alone. I'll say that again. You do not have to do this alone. As a matter of fact, I would highly recommend that you not. There are lots of partners out there. We are one of the leaders in that field that can help you with this. I'm not talking necessarily about in-housing. There are lots. The whole point of this kind of talk was to say that there's tons and tons of options that are out there. Regardless of which one you pick, regardless of the decisions that you make, regardless of how you are going to actually begin making those changes, you don't have to do this alone. Selecting a good partner is incredibly important. Next, this will take time. Make a plan and go step by step. For all of you who are out there who are hoping to complete an in-housing assignment in 3 to 6 weeks, forget it. A major business change of this magnitude is going to take a while. It changes depending upon it, but it's not measured in weeks, guys. It's measured in months and years. The point here is to make a major strategic shift to a fundamental operating parameter of your business, to do so for long-term advantage while not jeopardizing short-term quarterly results. Measurement and tech are a great place to start. If you're going to play on these things, then you might as well own your own tech contracts. Make sure that if you are using a DSP from Google or whatever from somebody else, that you own your own tech contracts, because if you don't own your own tech contracts, then in the eyes of the other counterparty who signed this thing, Google or whoever, you don't own your data, your agency does. And that sucks. Train new talent over hiring experience. Here's one of the reasons that Mighty Hive has been growing so fast. It's because we have a huge gap between the amount of programmatic talent that is available, the amount of advertising, advanced advertising personnel that really know how to do this stuff, and the demand. We estimate that there are a 10-to-1 disconnect between the number of jobs that want to be filled and the number of people who actually can fill this stuff. And as a ground truth, if you are trying to create one of these teams in a realm where the supply is so limited, then here's what happens. You end up massively overpaying for some truly crappy talent. And that sucks. And there is a better way. This stuff is teachable. This stuff is learnable. And Mighty Hive, because we never worked in an agency, we came from Google and Yahoo and Salesforce and all these places. We not only, the ability in that background not only gives us the ability to use these tools better, but the ability to teach people how to use these tools better. We can take a college graduate and turn them into a proficient programmatic trader in 6 months. Here's just a case study. This is one from Brazil. So iFood is Brazil's largest food delivery service, and this is a case study from Prog Media, right? Mighty Hive Brazil. And what these guys did was they made a change. They didn't go fully in-house. They are playing somewhere in the middle. They're using Prog Media's media activation services in order to do these types of things. But look at these results. They did the following things: granular performance variables, design new marketing models and integrations from the ground up. But you tell me what it would do to your business if you could cut the cost per acquisition by over half. Twice as many new customers for the same price. It's game-changing stuff. And we know that this stuff works. We've seen it over and over and over again. And it is with that, I'll just kind of get you to the final close. Here's 5 things that you can do right now to get started. And once again, I emphasize this. I may be biased, but that doesn't mean I'm wrong. I believe that 5,000 of the 5,000 largest companies in the world are going to have to do something. Here's what you can do to get started. Number 1, find a good partner. Do not be fooled by big names, famous names, or whatever. Ask the questions. Exactly how many times have you done this before? What are your qualifications around Adtech? Have you really done this, or are you just kind of like the latest person who's coming in from a big firm X and is going to charge an arm and a leg, right, in order to spout out a whole bunch of, wait for it, 3-letter acronyms? Number 2, assess and audit your tech and data platforms. You've got to know what you're working with before you can start changing. Take ownership of your data and your platform contracts. Determine how far you want to go. This is the spectrum of control analysis. Use a partner, maybe us, maybe somebody else, to figure out what is your future state. Then create a roadmap for change. It's as simple as that. Figure out where you want to go, figure out what the steps are going to be in order to get there, and get to work. That is basically my talk for today. I'm going to try a little bit more Portuguese for you guys. And obrigado pela oportunidade. Aproveitem o resto do evento. Thank you very much.